Hey guys, in this tutorial we're going to create this web design UI in Figma. We're also going to leverage an amazing 3D product from LS Graphics, which you can find in the link in the description, as well as my free UI UX design course on how to get started in UI UX design, where I'm basically going to share all the past experience which I gathered over the past 8 years, as well as source files of all of these tutorials which I share for free on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so let's get started, and the very first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to create a desktop frame of 1440 pixels of width. Now let's rename this to 1 by double clicking on it, and let's get started with the logo. So I'm going to write inizio right here, and for this specific web design we're going to use Montserrat, which is a free Google web font. Simply search on Google for Montserrat font and you're going to find it right away to download for free. And all right, here we go, have our logo. Now let's duplicate this just a few times, but before we do that, let's make it smaller. So I'm going to make it smaller and just turn it to a medium size, and let's start writing the text. So the very first one is going to be the about. Now using Shift plus the Option key and also the Command D, we're going to duplicate this 2 times. And here we're going to write the other menu items. So FAQ, contacts, and at the very right, we're going to add the get started text. All right, so far so good. Now, when it comes to the get started, we're going to actually make that a button. So we're going to use a rectangle tool, round it all the way to the max. We're going to select a color, probably around these lines, a bright yellow, which is almost leaning towards an orange, but not too much. So that's, yeah, that being said, I think we're in a good position, and we wanted to add a layout grid at this point. So we're going to click here, we're going to change it to columns. Now, since I'm used to using Bootstrap in the past, we're going to use 12 columns. We're also going to add quite a bit of more margin, so that as you can see, we're going to have a pretty solid structure for the project. Now let's make all of this light gray, so that the columns aren't going to interfere all that much when it comes to the design, so that we can still see what's behind them, essentially. And let's group this button. Let's bring it more towards here. Now, quick check on this one, if everything is vertically organized, and so far so good. Now let's write the actual headline, if I still remember how to spell everyone. All right, so let's make this one bigger. We're going to just duplicate and grab one of these elements right here. And I'm going to use the Lipsum text, which I use with a software called Atex, which automatically generates some text which I previously which I previously entered in the software itself. So let's make this one regular. Let's tone down the color of this gray just a bit, and probably I want to just have 2 lines of text, just not to make it too overwhelming. And let's add the button, and in just a moment we're actually going to add the illustration from the amazing 3D kit. So before we do that, let's actually go ahead and use and change the text over here to watch video. And since it's a watch video call to action, we'll need an icon in order to consolidate that, and we're going to use Google Material Icons, and this, by the way, is Nucleo Icons. You can access it at nucleoapp.com. And let's go ahead and right play. We're going to drag and drop this element right here. So as you can see, easy peasy. Let's make it smaller. Let's bring it over here, change the color to this darker one. Let's remove the fill. Let's add the stroke. Let's make the stroke 1.5. And there we go. Maybe let's make the icon just a little bit smaller. And that will do. All right, let's decrease this size right here, and we're pretty much good to go. All right, so far so good. Let's bring this within the watch video, the button, and all right. So let's go ahead and let's check out this amazing 3D library called the Blam from LS Graphics. And I'm going to leave the link in the description. As you can see, we have all sorts of different, the instructions are really clear. So we have the styles, and we also have all sorts of different symbols, which they all look really, really cool. So as you can see, all 3D. And yeah, it's just a very modern feel. We also have characters, and in this specific case, I'm probably going to go ahead and use this element right here, which is a nice little composition with different 3D elements. And I'm going to add it here on the main section. Now, of course, we need to resize this all the way down. Yep. And really like this, as it really stands out in the overall composition. And yeah, I think this one is working pretty well for a top header. Now let's add a divider line. We also need to make this web page bigger in height. So let's adjust the height, and there we go. That will do. Let's make this, let's give it less opacity. So maybe 15% opacity will do the job. We're also going to duplicate all of these layers, because as we're going to see in just a moment, we're actually going to add some H2s here, which stands for heading 2s, which are almost like this is the principal, the main title. This is the secondary one. So let's start writing. Start your startup process in a few days. All right. Now let's bring this one here. As you can hear in the background, or I hope you cannot, there is my parrot, which is needing some attention. So he's starting to talk and scream. So I hope it doesn't distract all too much. So all right, so far so good. Let's bring this one over here, and we're going to start adding some different icons as well. And I'm probably going to keep this layout more tight, so maybe around this column. So let's go ahead here and let's find a icon which could potentially work well. So this one right here, that would be cool. Let's make it smaller. All right, so far so good. So nice little icon to communicate this concept clearly, and probably going to just kind of align it over here so that everything is spot on in that regards. And now let's go ahead, we're going to duplicate this just a few times. So I'm going to copy this, bring it up, change the actual direction, and I'm probably going to do it one more time, so that we can essentially have all of the elements that we can see over here. So far so good. Now let's bring this one down, and let's actually go ahead and copy the other elements, starting from today. Right, so far so good. Okay, this one sorted out as well. And there we go. We have our 4 sub headlines, and now let's add some other icons. So let's go over here, and the first one that we'll need is this one right here. So let's bring it back, and I'm going to essentially remove this and copy it in place. All right, I'm trying to basically figure out the sizing. Maybe let's make it just a little bit smaller. We want to essentially maintain the size consistent throughout the project, so that's something that it's always going to be useful for the sake of visual consistency. So, all right, let's grab this one right here, which we're going to add in the first section, and let's go ahead and let's make it smaller, and let's bring it right over here. All right, so far so good. Now we're going to add the very last one, which is going to be a lock icon, which I found, yeah, this one right here, and that will do the job. All right, so far so good. Let's bring it down, and we're also, and as a finishing touch, we're going to create a footer, which is going to essentially be the copy of this footer right here. We're just going to add a background, and we're going to bring it all the way down to the very bottom. And let's make all of the text white, and the background is going to be black. So as you can see, nice little contrast, and we essentially have all of the elements right away with a final call to action to get started, since that's always going to be something important whenever you're creating web designs from scratch. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed this Figma tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.